Hello and welcome to the Jungle Gyms podcast. I'm your host Gavin and we're joined by Paddy and McGinty. What's happening, guys?
What are you doing?
Yeah, all good, all
Not
good.
bad.
How you doing, Gav?
Yeah, decent. Not bad, not bad. Thank you, guys. Well, let's get right into it. Today is Monday, the 16th of August. I know that we were talking yesterday. We went over a couple of topics such as the Celtic and Hearts game, Celtic and Jablonec game. And moving forward, the next fixture on the calendar is going to be the last kind of hurdle to overcome for us to get into the Europa League group stage. And that, of course, is Celtic against AZ Alkmaar, the Dutch team who finished third last season in the Eredivisie. And some of the bookmakers actually have them as favourites, but we're hoping to get into that and kind of dissect who this team is that we're playing on Wednesday. And of course, we want to talk about the Gordon Strachan shenanigans, which is cropped up. I think that was announced last Sunday by the Celtic board that Strachan was going to come in as a consultancy role. So I think that's definitely something that's divided opinion amongst the Celtic fans. So quite an interesting one to get into. But aye, as we said, let's get into it. Celtic and AZ Alkmaar. So we're going to be playing the Dutch mob on Wednesday the 18th, so at 7:45. I think the broadcast channel is still to be announced, so I don't even know if it's going to be on the TV, but uh, it might be a kind of a last minute sort of thing before that does get confirmed. McGinty, I know that you've been doing your homework in this AZ Alkmaar team. Tell me what you know of them, please.
I've done a little bit of research and homework. By no means have I done kind of like scout level of research to understand all the stats about the team, but it's interesting to see how they've started the season so far. They've only played one league game so far, which seems quite short. They played a 4-3-3. It looks like they're going to play a similar style of football to ourselves, looking to use the kind of wide players to support their striker. Do they play the inverted fullbacks? Who knows? As I have not researched them that much to know to that kind of detail. But they look like a team that's in transition as well. I've noticed they've lost a couple of players. Number one being the number one goalkeeper from last season, and the replacement seems to be that they've promoted from within, which is always a good thing that you want to see from clubs. Promote from within, develop your youth talent. But I'm noting that none of the keepers seem to have held down a number one position before. So I think there's something that we can exploit there, especially when we've got players in our attacking front three of Kyogo, even Edouard from the weekend there, Christie, hopefully back, Abada, who could definitely put a bit of pressure on inexperienced goalkeepers. The other big name that they've lost in this close season seems to be the right winger Calvin Stengs, who seems to have moved on from them, which is probably a big blow. However, from what I understand, the danger from this team still lies in the wide players. So they've got the left winger Jesper Karlsson, the Swedish boy. He seems to be involved in about 20 goals, scored and assisted last season. So he's a bit of a danger man himself. And likewise on the right side, to a lesser extent, there's a couple of players they've got there. One being Gudmundsson, who equally could cause a little bit of trouble ourselves, especially when you consider our fullback situation and backline is a little bit fragile as it stands. Other than that, I'm not seeing much from them that suggests that they're a massive step up, any more so than what I originally expected from Midtjylland, who in previous seasons Midtjylland have done quite well against Man United and so forth, and been in the Europa League stages and even the Champions League. So I expect them to be on a par. I'm, however, expecting that they might not be as strong as being favourites. However, I do understand from the bookies' point of view that they're looking at two teams who are probably not at the same height that they were previously in the last 2 or 3 years. So they're picking arguably the one in less trouble than the other one.
Aye. Aye. Some good detail there. Thank you for that. I think it's kind of worth noting that the Dutch football is kind of back on the rise. They went through certainly a blip, much as what the Italians did, of course. But we saw it in the Euros. The Dutch team were actually doing much better. They never had the classic players which you would normally associate with the Dutch teams, despite being a very, very small nation. But they were trying to play that with like kind of young talented players who do have great potential, but at the moment they're still kind of not well renowned amongst European football. But they played some good football in the Euros, some interesting games. But in general, like domestically, I think that the Dutch clubs are on the rise. So you've got like Ajax, just to kind of paint a picture of where AZ Alkmaar are coming from right now. In the landscape of things, but Ajax, they've already qualified automatically for the group stage of the Champions League. You've got PSV, who need to play a final qualifier against Benfica, and for them to get into the Champions League. And then you've got Feyenoord, they've got Elfsborg, obviously not for the Champions League. I think this might be a conference one to go into. And you've got Vitesse, they're playing Anderlecht. So again, you've got, what's that, five teams hoping to get into Europe then. So things are definitely on the rise, and of course the coefficient, everybody's talking about the coefficient from the so-called smaller nations in Europe. It's a big thing. So AZ Alkmaar will definitely be motivated to achieve what they can to get past Celtic. And on paper, as I said, the gambling companies, some of them have AZ Alkmaar as the favourites, and that might have been based on their achievements from last season. They did finish third in quite a tough competition domestically, and they've had like a big turnover. Their captain, what's his name, Coop Miners. He's quite a young guy, but 23 years old, but he get benched at the weekend there when we lost 1-0 to that RKC Wuchek. So you get benched. He came on as a sub, right enough. But there's a lot of transfer talk with him. I think Atalanta are quite interested in him, and they're no mugs when it comes to scouting, so it must be a half decent player. But I think there's a lot of speculation anyway, a lot of uncertainty in the wider squad as well with the turnover. A lot of people have left. And as you said, their goalkeeper, we're quite familiar with that. Paddy, what's your thoughts? It's been a while since we played the Dutch team. Have we gone back to the last time? Was it Utrecht when it was Ricky van Wolfswinkel put us out? Is that the last time we played against a Dutch team?
Was that a Europa League with Neil Lennon?
I want to say, yeah, back kind of 2010, 2012, somewhere in that period. Seems to be.
Was that not the game that Chadu scored the own goal? Was that one?
I don't know. I thought it might have been a.
You're going back.
I thought it might have been a qualifier, but my memory says in that one.
I feel like it was around about the same time we ended up playing. Who's the Portuguese team that we played?
Braga?
Was it Braga? Was there another one? We seem to play similar teams. In my head, I pegging them as similar caliber of teams. I think around a similar kind of period over a year or two. Anyway, that's on a tangent.
Sorry, Paddy.
Sorry.
I just done a couple of wee bit snippets of research. I noticed that the team is quite young, apart from about maybe 6 players who are over the age of 25. So that ties in with what Gint was saying, like with the goalkeeping situation about promoting. Gav again, Coop Miners, he's only 23, 24. He's a captain. And he definitely looks to be away. Hopefully he's away, obviously, before we play them, to Atalanta. But they're pretty young. You're talking like defenders at 21, 23. They've got a Japanese defender at 20. I think he's 21. I might be wrong. They've definitely got a Japanese defender. And just to touch on what McGinty says, they definitely look as if they deploy a 4-3-3 system. So if their main threat's coming down the wing, then clearly our fullbacks need to be on top of their game. Fortunately for us, Ralston's been playing pretty well recently. Recently, Gav. I'll give him his due. Been playing very well. Greg Taylor, he's another one that's going to need to kind of be on his A game if he's got one.
I agree with you. And in terms of the kind of the transition that they've experienced over the summer, they've actually brought in about £35 million worth, and that's only from like 3 players. But the chat is that they've not reinvested it yet into the squad after they get beat 1-0 on Saturday. And that team that they get beat, I think they only finished 15th last season. But again, we get beat by Hearts in the opening game, so don't look into that too much. And AZ Alkmaar actually had about 75% possession over that game, and they had 2 goals disallowed. But digress, I'm going into that too much. But as I said, they bought in about £35 million worth. From the player sales, they've not reinvested it, and their coach Janssen, I think his surname is, he was asked in an interview after the game, and the Dutch reporters were saying it looks like you've not brought in enough players to handle the new campaign. He said, well, yeah, you're quite entitled to draw that conclusion. So it sounds like he's frustrated, and I'm liking that frustration. It sounds like they've left the manager high and dry. They've not reinvested. I know that's something that sounds very familiar to us, but thankfully, over the past couple of weeks, it looks like we've got our act together to an extent. But it looks like we might be catching them cold. I think we talked about that last week anyway. That was the aim. That's what we're hoping for. They did okay in their pre-season friendlies. They beat Real Sociedad, they beat Torino. But again, this is the nitty-gritty. This is when it's competitive, when you need to be match fit, and we do have that head start on them. So let's hope we catch them cold. But again, from a Celtic point of view, we're hoping that Christie, I think it might be touch and go with him if he's going to be fit. I think Abada will be fit. That's what Postecoglou had hinted a couple of days ago. So you'd probably imagine that the Eddie will be starting up front again and Furuhashi on the left. And maybe, well, it might be either Christie or Abada or Forrest on the right. Paddy, what are you hoping for the front three? What's your ideal pairing or your ideal threesome?
Ideally, I'd like to go back. Well, it's a bit too early to be telling you the details, but no, I'm hoping that Abada starts. The left back, McGinty, what's his name again?
Sorry, you took me off. I can't remember what his name is, but the high value one seems to be injured. He seems to have a groin injury just now, so I think we should be okay there. He's probably not going to be.
Windal, his name is.
Windal. It reminded me of Gigi Wijnaldum. Kind of similar name to that.
I nearly said that, but it's Windal. So hopefully he's either out, or if he's brought back into the team, then he's not fully fit. So surely an Abada or a Forrest kind of running at him should be an interesting match. Hopefully the better for us. You're hoping that I don't know. Do you run with the same three at the weekend, or do you go back?
I think you do, Paddy. I think you go with the same midfield and a very similar front three. If not the exact same, then yeah, Abada for Edward and put Kyogo back through the middle again. You go pretty similar to what we have. It's started well. We're doing well in that front.
Do you know what? Forrest is still coming back to full fitness. Christie's coming back for injury, hopefully. So we'll stick with the front three at the weekend. Hopefully that's the one that plays. So Kyogo on the left, Edward in the middle.
I was watching, pardon me for interrupting, and talking about like Abada on the right because of his pace. It just reminded me. I was watching someone who covers the Dutch football, and he was talking about the preview. Talking in English, but from a Dutch perspective about the left back for AZ Alkmaar, and at the moment, as you guys rightly mentioned, he's not match fit. He's out right now, so they've got a left winger actually deputising in that role right now. And so if we do play Abada, who's lightning quick, we're hoping that guy is going to be kind of reminiscent of when we had Callum McGregor playing at left back for us against, who was it, Cluj, was it? Aye. So hopefully we can exploit that weakness anyway. From what the chat is from their camp is that there's a lot of uncertainty. They don't know who their best 11 is. And even the manager, Paddy, I think you know a wee bit about this guy. I think he only came into the job in December 2020. So he came in midway through last season anyway, and I think he was given like a 1-year rolling contract. So he's probably still finding his feet and probably haggling with the board to try to get those funds to reinvest. But anything else that you know about the coach?
He's basically been a youth coach up until, as you said, December 2020. Just a couple of wee silly trivia facts, but he was actually born in London, and his mother was a part of a duo, the 1974 pop group called Spooky and Sue. I'm not expecting any of you to know that, because I certainly don't have to go into fucking YouTube.
I don't consider myself young anymore, but I'm not that old yet.
What is that? Is that going back, like, is that before Top of the Pops, like the old grey whistle test? Are we going that far back with that?
I don't know, Gav, you'll need to fill us in on that one.
Aye. Well, definitely a team that we don't really know much about. AZ Alkmaar, a curious name, and their home capacity is just less than 20,000. So if you think about it, compared to Parkhead, I know that that's not a kind of direct comparison that we should be beating these teams if we've got a higher wage bill, if we've got a higher capacity at Parkhead. It's not checkers, you know what I mean? It's chess at the end of the day, a different kettle of fish. But you hope that whenever they come to Parkhead, a lot of young boys, they might be a wee bit starstruck with the home capacity, the Celtic fans in full voice. That's one of our massive assets anyway. So let's hope that things go well for us.
There's something else that I did note while having a look at the situation. If I'm right in saying, I don't think they play another game between the two Celtic ties. They play us on Wednesday night, and then they play us next Thursday, is it? And it doesn't look like they've got a league game in between, like at the weekend. So, as you were saying earlier there, Gavin, we're probably hoping that we catch them cold. There's every likelihood that we catch them off guard on Wednesday, and they don't have another opportunity to try and rectify anything. They've got a week of training to try and figure out what went wrong, hopefully. But then they come straight back in at Celtic. They've not got that extra game to build any more momentum to get a good performance under their belt to kind of push on. So we might get a little bit of advantage out of that, I think, if we can hit them early in the first game, then kind of build on that ourselves.
It's a bit of a queer one. Like, if you're right, not doubting you, McGinty, but if you're right, you wonder, is it possible that it's the Dutch FA who've actually removed one of their ties to try to kind of make it easier for the home teams in Europe? You wonder, because some of the European football associations do that for their own clubs. You don't really see it happening in England or in Scotland for that matter. But an interesting thing. But again, if they don't have a competitive game between now and the next leg, then perhaps they might just arrange an indoors bounce game anyway to kind of get them more match fit. But we'll see how it goes. A big game, obviously a massive game, and if we're going to go through, then I think we need to get a positive result. We're hoping that we get a few goals and a clean sheet. I know that away goals don't count anymore, but we need to get a bit of daylight between them before we go to the return leg in Holland. I think that's crucial, definitely crucial. Paddy, would you concur with that?
I think on that note, you usually find that if you're getting a draw, then you would want to be at home the second leg. But I think because of the way that we're playing now, and we've got that thorough cohesion with the team, you know, we're right out the traps, we're playing very well, attacking wise, we're phenomenal. I think we want to carry that straight on in front of the home crowd. It's obviously a different set of circumstances with the home crowd being back in just after being locked out for 18 months. So when Alkmaar come to Celtic Park on Wednesday, I think the noise is going to be phenomenal. And as you said earlier, Gav, I think there's a potential there that is going to frighten a few of their younger players. Not that they're children or anything, but do you know what I mean? If they're playing in front of 20,000 people, then it's going to be something else for them to walk out at Fortress Parkhead, hopefully. We're going to be calling that again.
Aye. That reminds me, actually, before we move on to Strachan, the Paddy, sticking with yourself, I know that you're a local boy anyway, so over the past few weeks, what's it like noticing the increased foot traffic around Parkhead? It must be a great sight to behold.
Absolutely. Sometimes you actually forget that the fans are allowed back in, and maybe if you're driving about before kick-off, you think, who the fuck's all this traffic? Where's this coming from? And then you remember again, like, oh, that's right, everybody's allowed back in. But no, even kind of around about my parts, you know what I mean? The parking's come back as well, so it's a double-edged sword because you can't get parked anywhere now.
But you can get out and make yourself a couple of quid by watching the cars, you know? Easy pocket money.
Aye. Get a wee chips and curry for the burger van too. Oh, I've missed that. Aye. Right, moving on to the Gordon Strachan news. So, as I said earlier on, last Sunday, it was announced by Celtic that Gordon Strachan is going to be joining us on a consultancy basis for 3 months. So he'll be going to Lennoxtown, and his mandate, his remit will be providing recommendations on the academy, on the B team and the women's football team to the chief executive, Dominic Mackay, and that'll be on how to develop areas. And I quote, that's feeding into the wider work ongoing across the club. It definitely came out of left field for me anyway. I think for a lot of people, the tenure, 3 months, a little bit of a question mark over that, and certainly the candidate as well of Gordon Strachan. So it does raise the question: would you want someone who's already quite intimate with the club, or would you rather an unknown, or even further unknown, as in someone who's not even involved in Scottish football entirely? So a lot of questions over that. Paddy, what was your first impressions whenever you heard the news?
I wasn't surprised with it, to be honest. Yeah, I think it had been spoke about previously, and his name had been thrown into the hat. And I know somebody asked Dominic Mackay at one of the press conferences, is Gordon Strachan going to be the new director of football? And he categorically denied Gordon will not be coming back in that capacity. But when you look at it, for what was said there, it was clearly a kind of a wee off-road comment, because he was obviously being looked at for another capacity, which to me, I don't understand the difference between what he's allegedly been brought in to do or what is a director of football. Because to me, a director of football is in charge of the football and operations. No so much the team on the park or the first team, but the entire footballing strategy at the club. So I don't know. I actually don't know what kind of attributes Strachan's got to be doing that job, especially like with the women's team and stuff. It's quite puzzling. But it's only 3 months, I suppose, to start off with. So I'm just wondering if this is maybe like a wee trial. Get in an older head, see if you can bring anything to the table. And if that's the case, then we'll maybe go and try and permanently hire someone in that position. Because I know Mackay's talking about reinventing the club and modernising it, which is a bit of a kind of backhanded comment when you're bringing back a 64-year-old Strachan who's been an ex-manager. I really don't know, to be honest. But
One thing
I'm sure.
you were saying you were sure? So
Sorry, on you go.
sorry for interrupting, cut you off there. The one thing about modernising, it's not a young man's phrase, you know what I mean? It's universal. I think that anyone in any capacity and of any walk of life or experience can implement modernisation. It's about pruning back bad habits. And I think, in my own personal opinion, like for me, I'm speculating at this point. Other people, no doubt, have got a more informed opinion about making their own conclusions. But for me, I would have thought he's coming in as a kind of a troubleshooter role. He's coming in, and as the statement said, feeder into the wider work ongoing across the club. So we've obviously been making these plans, and as you rightly said within the press conference, Dominic Mackay, he was talking about when he was asked, "Are you going to get a director of football?" He said, "I'll look at all aspects of a sporting organisation in any particular field where we can modernise, then we will modernise." But for this whole director of football thing, I just see it as Strachan coming in for a 3-month period, and he's going to be giving feedback to Dominic Mackay, and I think Strachan will more than likely bugger off back to Dundee, and I know that he'll be having those dual roles with Dundee, and that's another thing which we'll get into as well. The SFA have opened up I think it's an 8-man panel because they think it's in breach of the Article 13 of the regulations for conflict of interest, and that's not the first time that a conflict of interest issue has arisen in Scottish football this season, because we know that the other mob are raising an issue with them as well, which they would think is much more worthy of contesting than us. But moving on to McGinty, I know that you've probably got a few opinions on this as well. I'll just let you off the leash here, mate.
Very much, guys. So where do we start? For me, I've always had. I'll start this off. I've always had quite an anti-Strachan opinion, shall we say, since he was manager. A lot of people revere him as getting us to the last 16 twice and all the rest of it. Won us a few of the league titles, and you can't take away his success as a manager. Without dwelling on what he did as a manager and what his remit was when he came in from Peter Lawwell and all the rest of it, he did a good job. He done what he's done, but I was never a massive fan to the same degree as most people. So perhaps what I'm about to end up, spewing out of my mouth at this point is going to be quite biased from that angle. So I will hold my hands up here. But for me, it's a baffling one, to say the least. As Paddy says, the press conference a month or two back when Don Mackay was asked that question specifically of Gordon Strachan being a director of football, he specifically said, not a director of football, Gavin. Gordon Strachan is not coming back in that capacity. Even at that point, that rang alarm bells for me, thinking Dom was so specific to use that phrase, director of football, that made me think you're going to call it something else. Sporting director, technical director, chief operations manager, whatever you want to throw a title at, to kind of be sly about getting him on the books, because the stories and the rumours at the time were quite strong on Strachan coming in some capacity. And lo and behold, we're less than 2 months later and he's announced he's coming in for a 3-month consultancy period. The last time that happened, we signed Nicky Hammond on a permanent deal. So I've no hopes that this is just 3 months. To me, it definitely looks like we're setting it up to ease him into the job, to test the water, to push him into it and see if he's capable of doing the job, and then he can lose the Dundee contact and move into the Celtic position, which I just don't see what he brings. Initially, we're saying that he's going to come in to deal with operations of the football structure, to do with the Colts team, the B squad, and the women's team. I'm sorry, what does Gordon Strachan have any experience in women's football? I've
Just
no
stop
idea.
you for a second, McGinty. So just to kind of recap, you're quite convinced that it's not going to be a 3-month stint. You're convinced that there's a long-term plan, and it's just a bit of smoke and mirrors here. The long-term plan is for Strachan. As long as he doesn't mess up, then he is the number one candidate for the long-term director of football. Is that what you think is the plan?
Yeah, I'll say yeah, and yeah, people are gonna look at this and say conspiracy theory and all the rest of it, and so be it. But this is Celtic Football Club. This is still the same board that's been in place for the last 18 years. And if we learn anything about this board, this is what they do. They are sly and sleek about it. They try and push things through, and hopefully everybody's rides in on the kind of euphoria of the Ange ball and the success, and we just go, sure, whatever, put whatever you want in place, and we'll just clap along and be happy. I feel if it's not with the view that he gets some sort of job long term, what is the point? Because as I start to say, what does he offer? What knowledge does Gordon Strachan have of women's football? We've got a guy called Fran Alonso who's tearing it up at the women's club. As Paddy has mentioned a few times in our WhatsApp group chat, I think they're playing the Champions League for the first time tonight, is it, Paddy? Was it this week? I mean, all credit to the women's team. They seem to be doing well. What's Gordon Strachan going to tell Fran Alonso when Fran Alonso's taking them into the Champions League, and yet here we are with the men's squad can't even get a look into the Champions League? I don't understand what he's going to offer there. What's he going to offer to the Colts team and the B squad when we remember he went and managed Scotland and none of the young players got a look in? He gave caps to bloody 28-year-olds. That was Gordon Strachan's mandate, was, give it to 28-year-olds. Whoever wants a cap can get one at a certain age, because experience rules over development of young talent. So again, what's he going to bring? Personally, I just don't understand what he brings for a 3-month consultancy that is going to help us modernise the football club.
See, on that note then, Gav, just to keep things on an even keel, do you think Strachan can bring anything positive to that role?
Yeah, I do. Whenever people question his credentials, I find it baffling that they actually do. First off, the main point for his detractors will be, well, at Celtic, as the Celtic manager, what youth did he promote? Well, our main flair player, of course, was Aidan McGeady. We also had Sean Maloney. And you do what you can do as manager. You're judged by results. And as McGinty said, he was the only manager to get us to the last 16 twice. So what was the alternative? To play the youth players, the other youth players apart from McGeady and Maloney, the less talented players, just give them the chance, even if they were good or not good enough. you've got a mandate to win games, and that's exactly what Strachan did. Like him or hate him, he was not a Celtic-minded man. I don't like that phrase because he was very successful, and I could go on it a lot because like one of the main mandates for him was to bring down the wage budget. The Martin O'Neill, that was one of the legacies that Martin O'Neill had left us. So Strachan achieved that well, a new calibre of player, but we still did very, very well. We beat the champions AC Milan at Parkhead. But even apart from that, apart from his CV as a Celtic manager, he's been to World Cups with Scotland. He's played under Alex Ferguson at Aberdeen,
Oh, as a
and he
player.
went.
So
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
you were
yeah.
going to say his manager, like, come on. But as a player, yeah, sure.
And went down to Manchester United as well, and did it there. He played for Leeds as well. A fantastic player, and he really embraced. Like when you're talking about like modern thinking and old school thinking, Strachan was never a big drinker. He played until he was like almost 40 years old. Like there was a picture. I read his autobiography, and there was a picture of him playing for Leeds. He's like almost like 39 years old, and he's got Dennis Bergkamp at his heels trying to bite him. A big young guy versus like a wee old guy, Strachan. It was a great picture. I forget what the caption was, but it would have been something witty, which Strachan is obviously renowned for. Strachan is a forward-thinking player and manager. Was a forward-thinking player and is a forward-thinking manager, director of football. I think the guy is very relevant. If he was an absolute dosser, then why is he still, like keeping up ties with Celtic? For the match day games, like talking on camera. The guy speaks sense. He's very, very listenable. He's good on camera. He doesn't mince his words as well. So if you're thinking he's going to come in as a whatever director of football, change the name if you wish, he's going to come in and he's going to know exactly what his mission is. I don't think he's going to be here for a party, for a feet up jaunt. I think he's going to do exactly what he's been asked to do. I can't really think of anyone domestically, Scottish football wise, who would be a better candidate than Strachan. I think his CV is almost untouchable. So that's my piece there, Paddy.
I'm afraid, Gavin, I have to disagree with quite a lot of that. Has generally been irrelevant, and I know it's going to cause a lot of argument between us at some points here, but what he did as a player means diddly squat to me when he's
It's the man
not
he
so
is
much.
now. Everything
Yeah,
that he's
well,
done in his life in football has led up to who he is right now. All that experience, all that knowledge. You can't dismiss a full chunk of his playing career.
I think you can. His playing career was decades ago. 3 decades ago was the last time he played football. His managerial career has ended. And as a manager, I would judge him more on that tenure rather than his playing, because clearly players become different kinds of coaches and different kinds of managers, or else we would all be looking at John Kennedy and saying you are the defensive coach because you were a defender. Playing careers are different from management and coaching careers. For me, yes, he's had great success at Celtic. I've held my hands up. I wasn't a massive fan, but you cannot dispute what he's done as a manager at Celtic and elsewhere. But I just don't, from his managerial background, I don't see what he brings that would give him any sort of expertise or knowledge in development of youth football and women's football, which is the two main points he's been earmarked to deal with in this 3-month period. What he does thereafter, if it becomes a permanent job and what that looks like, who knows? But for just now, I don't see what relevance he has in any of his career that would suggest that he's the right guy for this here. It makes no sense to me.
I'm equally baffled by your opinion, Paddy. Can you provide some common ground between me and McGinty here?
I'll just leave the room and leave it to you two. Like. No, I think I don't know. I think what you said about his playing career, McGinty, you can't no take any experience for that, because if you're going for being a player to a manager, then you take your playing experience into your managerial experience.
So again, we talk about John Kennedy as an example. He was a defender. Do we just assume that he's always the defensive coach? He's not. We've been told he's not. So it can be different.
No, but we're not talking about John Kennedy, but we're talking about a manager having playing experience. It helps him. So if you're if you're managing a club, then you're obviously going to have your fingers or your ears to so many places. So for a guy I know I mentioned his age before, that's partly why I wanted to bring it up, was because surely to God at 60 plus years of age, he must have a great deal of knowledge about how a football club works.
You would think so. And
Right.
generally, you would think so. So
Right.
tell me what that is.
Surely he must be able to take that.
I think Paddy's frozen there. Well, McGinty, when I was talking about, sorry, McGinty, when I was talking about Strachan being quite forward thinking, even in his playing career, what I meant was in those days, especially in British football, it was the tradition, to socialise with your teammates and have like a booze up,
I
quite
totally get
often.
that. Yeah.
Strachan extended his playing career because he scorned that type of lifestyle, and I think he was quite forward thinking even as a young man. So.
No, I totally get that, and you can look at his time at Celtic. He was quite harsh on McGeady in some aspects. There's always the rumours and stories about personal lives between the families of McGeady and Strachan there. But I think he was also quite harsh on McGeady to try and get the best out of him, to motivate him, to push him a bit harder. Look at how he...
that was like Alex Ferguson with Strachan.
Yeah,
Ferguson
being the hard dad sort of thing.
Yeah.
You look at Ryden as well. He was a bit of a loose cannon, and I think we had to take a bit of a hard route with him. It never paid off. It did with McGeady. I totally get that he brings an approach that is, if we compare him to Lennon, for example, it is much, much better in the sense that he doesn't look upon his team to say, I'll go have a booze up midweek or whatever. He's more the manager who'll be like, no, you're working. This is your job. This is your life. You do this X, Y, Z. And he is definitely a man who would coach and manage and expect performances and professionalism from players and members of the club to be at a certain level that we would all appreciate to be of a good standard. I don't take that away from him. I just don't see what he brings that would, other than that, show that he actually is capable of working with youth development and promoting youth talent and infrastructures that we all talk about, that we all want, when even at Celtic and at Scotland, he didn't really do much of that. Yes, of course, he brought in some young players. There's always exceptions to the rules as such. He's obviously not just always playing 30-year-olds. But on the whole, he was never a manager who looked to the youth as a source of talent to nurture and progress.
Well, going back to Paddy, but last thing I would say on that is, as a manager, as I said earlier on, like your number one aim is to win games, and if the youth is not readily available to walk into that team, then what are you going to do? Are you going to sacrifice the short term results to try and nurture youth, or are you just going to play with your senior professionals? Paddy, onto yourself, kind of. We'll try to kind of conclude where Celtic are coming from. Is it the right step forward that we bring in someone, anyone though, with the right candidate though? Is it right that we bring in someone for the short term, that maybe like a 3-month thing as we're doing though, to kind of pinpoint Dominic Mackay in the right direction to say, I've been at Lennoxtown for X, Y, and Z period of time. This is where you're falling short. These are your blind spots, and this is what you should be doing. This is where you should be improving. And then Dominic Mackay can maybe take that information away and then think about what type of role he wants to create within the corridors of Celtic to improve Lennoxtown to no end. Do you think that that's a positive thing that we're doing, rather than just appointing someone permanent right now?
See, this is what I'm kind of torn, because I don't really know. Obviously, been like almost like a trial period or a consultancy period, but
I think we're losing Paddy again. That's unfortunate. Well, McGinty, just to kind of finish up with yourself, if it wasn't Gordon Strachan, and I'm not asking you for
I mean, surely.
Some technical issues on the Paddy side. A wee bit of movement there, Paddy. Are you back with us?
Well, Paddy, you with us? Right, McGinty, what I was going to ask you was if it wasn't Strachan, and I'm not asking you for a particular name. I don't need don't need you to pluck a name out of there. But what type of candidate on paper would you be looking for?
Somebody with some sort of track record in building infrastructures across a football club. Don Mackay in the press conference spoke a good game about having made contact with other clubs in Europe and in the UK who have a more modern approach in infrastructure to see if we can get some ideas and inspiration and some advice and that stuff. And I think that's the right way to go about it. And I think somewhere within those conversations we should be getting kind of asking questions of people to see if people want to come up and want to take part in the process as well. So I'll be looking for somebody who's had experience in doing this kind of job before. And again, without going back on the point too much, I don't see what experience Strachan has of doing this exact job. He might still be good at it. But I'd be looking for somebody who already has that experience, already has a little bit of a connection and network, because inevitably, if this role is going to lead into a director of football of some kind, we want whoever that person happens to be to have connections and networks, which I even hear myself as I'm saying it. Gordon Strachan clearly does have connections. He's been in the game long enough. North and south of the border, clearly he's going to have connections. I don't know. I feel like
It's okay.
I feel like we missed the boat on Fergal Harkin in some capacity. Did we muck it up? Did he muck us around? Was it part of the Eddie Howe deal? There's a whole shebang going on there. But I feel like we've missed a trick. We've missed an opportunity somewhere there. And Gordon Strachan at this point is the kind of easier route to try and fill the void, as you say, for the 3 months, to try and figure out what it is that we're actually seeking to find. I don't know, it just seems lazy and easy. You're asking me who do I want, and instead not a name. Somebody who just has experience of doing this, who's got a proven CV that says I have built an infrastructure of this caliber at another club. It doesn't have to come from the UK. It doesn't have to come from Europe. It could be anybody. It could be somebody who's, you got that Ralph Ragnick who literally has set up a consultancy firm in the last kind of few months that literally does this stuff. So we should be looking at these kind of people to help us, not plucking out a Gordon Strachan who doesn't do this or hasn't.
See what you're saying. I get where you're coming from, again, but I think that the candidate on paper that you're describing is the type of person that we want to do the job. What I think is that Strachan is going to be the bridge that's leading up to us being in a position where we can appoint that perfect candidate. That's what I'm getting from it.
I feel in
Paddy,
time we might be able to see that. I think we need to see what the 3 months brings, and then I think it will be telling if we do get that candidate who does then come in, or if it ends up being a wee, here you go, Gordon.
McGinty, if it happens where Gordon does become the permanent director of football, I won't issue an apology to you.
I wouldn't
but
want one.
if it works out badly in the long term, then you can feel free to pull me up for it. Paddy, I see that you've been playing musical statues. Welcome back. How you doing? You okay?
He's there. He's there in some capacity.
I'm still here. I'm still
There
here.
we go.
Sorry, Gav. Gav, do me a favour? Will you going to just give me a wee quick recap on what you said Strachan's remit's going to be, or what he's been asked to do?
Yeah. So providing recommendations on the academy, the B team, and the women's team to the chief executive on how to develop those areas, and that's feeding into the wider work ongoing across the club.
Right. Okay. I'm.
It looks like the
It's,
women's
it's,
team anyway don't need his help. It's probably the
no,
Colts team in the academy at Lennoxtown.
I think we all know that there needs to be some sort of a bridge built between the youth team or the Colts team with the first team. I believe that in Strachan's spell as manager, did Tino work quite closely with Tommy Burns when he was brought in to kind of oversee the youth team?
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? And that was another manager being brought in to kind of bring about that role, was getting more use in. So it's worked before, so it could obviously work again. I honestly don't think it'll be that bad. It's only for 3 months. What could be what's the worst that could happen with it for 3 months? So you get an experienced football man, not just a manager, a football man coming in and offering his advice on what he sees.
So,
He gives his recommendations to Mackay, and Mackay either takes it or he moves him on. But Strachan's already in that kind of role already at Dundee. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's not as if he's just walking into a kind of an overseen circumstances for the first time. He's literally doing that with Dundee, and they've done no too bad getting back up to the Premiership.
Yeah, he must be
How
doing something, right?
how long has he been in that role at Dundee for?
I think it's been about a year at least now.
Okay, so he has played some sort of active role in their promotion. Then it's not just been the last 3 months. He's been there 6 months, sort of thing.
He's still currently in that role at Dundee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that perhaps can highlight the fact that he's not going to be fully entrenched permanently within Celtic because he's going to be bridging the two roles. I know that, as I said earlier, the SFA are looking into any kind of conflict of interest, but the fact that Dundee have not raised any objections to this, it sounds like it's very, very consensual in both parties that the the work that he's going to do with Celtic is it's not going to have any difference at all to what he does with Dundee. I'm sure that the clubs have already contacted each other about it and they've sorted it out. It's only McGinty and the SFA who have got an issue with it.
I think maybe my gripe is it's just how it looks on the outside. It looks very suspicious as we've kind of came used to, in the cynical aspect of how we look towards the people in charge of Celtic. That it's a, I don't want to say job for the boys per se, but it's lazy routes. It's things that we feared might have happened that looks like it is happening. So there is the worry of what this could possibly mean about what is really happening behind the scenes. Are we modernising it properly, or are we just going through some motions and giving titles and jobs to people to try and make the fans happy for a while? I think that's
And was
my
it
fear.
jobs for the boys with Tommy Burns? Is the point that Paddy raised?
No, I wouldn't say for Tommy Burns. Tommy Burns previously had a track record of working with youth and developing youth at the time. So when he comes in that capacity, for me, he had previous experience of it. Again, Strachan for me doesn't, but I'll hold my hands up. My negativity on it is probably born out of I've never been a big fan of Strachan, and I'm extremely cynical of how this board operates. Even with Don Mackay as the front of it, it's still the same board behind him. So I'm cynical about it. I'll hold my hands up to admit that.
Yeah, well, don't put yourself down too much because obviously the phrase "no smoke without fire," that there can be a bit of credibility given to that. But it's one of those ones. We'll wait and see. We'll hold off. Again, he'll be working within the background. It might be a long time before we see whether it was a success or whether a failure or whether Dominic Mackay had to go back to square one and rethink his grand plan. We will find out about that. But guys, good discussion anyway. Moving on to transfer rumours. Let's see what the tabloids have been peddling out on a daily basis now. One guy that's caught my eye, he's been talked about for a few weeks now, is the boy for Shamrock Rovers. 23-year-old Liam Scales. So he's like a centre back primarily, but recently he has been playing as a left back, left wing back. He's a big guy. He's about 6'3", very athletic, and I think a few clubs down south have been sniffing about at him. It looks like Celtic are in talks with him anyway, and I heard that the fee bandied about of 600,000. And what I've been hearing from Irish supporters as well across the sea, and they've been saying that Celtic's defence is quite deplorable right now, and regardless of our current state of affairs, this is a type of player who would walk into the team, who would improve it. He's a big guy, he's technically sound, he can get up and down the park, as we can see by playing a left wing back position. So even if he's playing as a centre back, we know he's got that recovery speed to get back and sort out any accidents caused by Starfelt or whoever. I'm quite encouraged by that. Sometimes it's the wee guys who go under the radar who can actually surprise you. I'm quite encouraged by that one. I would like to see it. It doesn't sound like much money, and even if he is going to be a squad player, it could be a utility player too. I'm happy with that. It sounds good. Paddy, have you heard much about that guy?
The only comment I heard about him was, again, it was for Ireland, was that he's like a Charlie Mulgrew without the free kicks.
Hmm.
So
We've got David Turnbull.
Who?
We've got David Turnbull for the free kicks. We don't need him to do that. So if he can be a utility solid man, fair play.
And a bit of height as well. A bit of height for the set pieces. We've really needed that, especially after last season.
We don't want David Turnbull.
No, we definitely don't. But I just mean like, yeah, if we can get a Charlie Mulgrew in his peak, a version of that, yeah, there could be something to have.
I think the guy's got more pace than Charlie Mulgrew. I'll put that on record in case anyone listening is
It wouldn't be hard.
Very true. McGinty, have you heard of anyone else who's came on the radar?
So right back seems to be the forever ongoing, twice weekly or every second week somebody else kind of seems to be the number one target. What we went through, Boy, Sasha, Buta. We're now on the boy from Legia Warsaw. Was it 2 weeks ago we were in for him, or we inquired about this boy? How do you say his name? Juranovic?
Josip Juranovic. He played against Scotland in the Euros for Croatia, didn't he?
I believe so. So we do seem to be actively chasing it. It's worrying that we've not managed to tie one down yet, considering this is a problem position that's been known since January. But it looks like, from what I'm seeing on Twitter and comments today, that the initial contact was made about 2 weeks ago. No real bid was made for him. I think the fee seems to be mentioned as around about the kind of 4 million, 4.5 million. But then we moved on to the Brazilian boy at Man City for the kind of City group link that we seem to be unofficially having, which I'm all for. But seemingly, seemingly that's kind of fallen off. He was, correct me if I'm wrong, Paddy, I think he was brought up to Celtic Park for the Europa League game last week to kind of give him the red carpet treatment, and he seems to have kind of walked away and says, no, it's not for me for whatever reason. And now it looks like we're going back to the boy from Legia Warsaw. The tweets coming out today are that we've not actually made an initial bid. So there's a bit of a noise that we're dragging this on longer than it needs to be. If he's interested, let's get him signed. Stop diddling around with this one. But yeah, something needs to happen with him.
Paddy, what do you make of that? The 19-year-old, he's already got, as a right back for City, he's got Cancelo, he's got Kyle Walker playing ahead of him. He gets brought up here, winding and dined in front of the Celtic Park, playing against Jablonec. A great European night, and he doesn't get seduced by that atmosphere. There must be something wrong there.
Some players change their mind at the last minute. Some players get a kind of sniffy about an English club, kind of looking at them, maybe another foreign club. But listen, if he doesn't want to come to Celtic, we look for somebody else. But the main kind of worry I've got now is that the Croatian media, it seems that Juranovic is keen to come to Celtic. It seems that Legia is keen to do a deal with Celtic, and they're literally just saying, right, where's your bid? One of the reported comments from was that we're supposed to have been into these discussions before with Legia over the last couple of weeks, and a reported fee at about 3 million was agreed, about a verbal agreement, and that Celtic came in with a official approach that was far less than what was agreed. Now again, that's reports, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. But if we're going back to this guy, then surely God they can't piss about. If Legia say they want 3 million, 4 million pound, right, okay, there you are. We done it with David Turnbull. Motherwell asked for 4 million pound. Okay, there you go. I nearly took a heart attack when I heard about it. But we can do that. Do you know what I mean? We've lost out on so many players over God knows how long with this kind of penny pinching arsing about. So we need a right back, so it's time to stop arsing about and go and buy the boy if he wants to come. If we're interested in getting him, let's get him in.
Aye, quite rightly said. And the games, as you said, they're coming thick and fast. It's midweek weekend, and it's Anthony Ralston playing in every single game for Celtic. It's probably a blessing in disguise that we've got Anthony Ralston rather than Christ, I'm forgetting the guy's name. The Swedish right back that we used to have. What was his? Lustig, yeah, because he wouldn't manage.
I feel like Lustig, just as you kind of break up there a little bit, Gavin, I feel like Lustig in his prime, definitely 100% massive improvement on Ralston at any stage. However, obviously, Lustig at this age, what is he now going on, 34, 35 or something? He's probably not quite got the legs that Ralston has to be getting up and down that right wing. It's a problem area, as you say, Paddy. We definitely need to get that under control. And if I'm right in saying similar things seem to be happening up front with transfers as well, Paddy. The French boy Henri, Thomas Henri, is it? From what I understand, it looks like we've kind of sniffed around. It looks like, as you're saying, with the Legia Warsaw boy, Henri seems to be interested in coming to Celtic, or was. And it's us that seem to be the slow pace to making moves forward. And it now looks like this boy who was interested in some capacity, he's definitely available, is now actually being 95% done to go to, I think, Ghent it is, and he's going to stay in Belgium when it's been known, seemingly, that he would like to try and play outside of Belgium and go abroad. We should have and could have been an option from there. I have just realised, Paddy, we have some major technical issues here. We have just lost Gavin, so our camera positions have all but went awry as we bring Gavin back on. He's loading in there. How you doing, Gavin? Welcome back. That's quite a technical issue there. We just moved on and had a wee chat there about Thomas Henri, a likewise transfer dealing that seems to be slow in the making and has now went beyond us as he's been moving on to other clubs.
Ghent, I've heard about that, and sorry, it's a bad night for the internet. I was thinking about that. It's like we're not going to spend money on him until we know exactly what Eddie is what's happening with Eddie. I read a crazy article. I'm sure it was a crazy article, but I heard that Eddie's looking for like 85 grand a week if he goes down south.
It's a lot of money, and I hope it's not putting people off. He's going to have to wise up to that himself if he wants the move this summer. If that's going to be a stumbling block, he's going to need to bring that down. I mean, what is he on at Celtic? 25, 30k, somewhere in that ballpark. If he's demanding 80 plus, that's a lot of money for somebody to fork out on a player that they might be still suspicious about. Especially when he comes across as being a kind of lethargic, slow, moody kind of player. So you never know what kind of player you're getting. His demands, it's not on us to tell him what to sell himself for, but you'd argue that he could get 40, 50 if he lowers his demands, surely, from a club down south, even if it is your Leicesters or your Villas or your West Broms or whatever it could.
Aye.
I noticed that Edwards gets the same agent as Fraser Forster, who, when we were trying to look at another goalkeeper, obviously for this season, to try and either replace Barkas or push him on, I think Fraser Forster, who's third choice at Southampton, was refusing to budge on like 180 grand a week or something, even though the second choice goalkeeper is on less. Do you know what I mean? So this could be a case of the agent there with is trying to rip the arse.
Yeah,
you know,
agents tend to get cuts. Depends how they set up contracts and structures. So agents, from what I understand, can get cuts of any transfer deal, and then obviously just being employed by a player themselves, they could potentially get, say, like a 5% of the player's salary gets paid to the agent. So it would very much be in the agents. I say that's maybe more of a kind of American agent thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar in football in Europe, that they get some sort of cut, because the player has to pay the agent in some capacity. So definitely money is a driving factor.
Well, on the talk about agents, I mean, your man Thomas Henri, that could be another case of, here's a player who's looking to get his name linked to a team outside Belgium, as you say, he wanted to try his luck there. So he could be using Celtic to try and kind of sweeten a move to someone else, or try and entice somebody into coming in from, you know.
It could be, yeah. It very well could be.
I think the fact that we're not looking to go and sign a guy like that is possibly because we can't get rid of Edward, or we're looking to keep Edward and just try and use him whilst we've got him, which is it's a bit of a dangerous game, because I think if you don't sell him in this window, well, obviously, sorry, if we don't sell him in this window, we're going to lose him for nothing. So what type of player are we going to get? Are we going to get a fully committed Edward if he knows fine well that he's leaving for nothing when we've had him on contract and he's not been quite as committed as you would like?
Here's a question, a scenario as such. We paid, what was it, £9 million for Edward after his loan spell, and since he's been here, have we been in the Champions League? I'm unsure if we have at all, and if we have, it would have been his first season, if any at all. So my worry, concern, intrigue is that we forked out £9 million. Realistically, we've not got that money back. He's not delivered a Champions League participation for us. We've got Europa League money out of it, and yes, Europa League money has probably paid us back more than we've ever paid to get Edward, but realistically, we would always try and get Europa League as a last resort, surely. So I don't think we're getting money's worth from him, and to lose him is going to be a bad sign, I think, for the board and the club, that they might become a little bit more timid about spending that kind of money again, on the fear that we don't get it back. The player can leave for free, don't get any real value or return from getting into the Champions League.
So even the fact about the money, it's the fact that if you can't sell Edward, right, and say for talk's sake you brought in a Thomas Henry or somebody else, you're going to have Furuhashi, Edward, Henry or whoever, Ayeti, and obviously Griffiths is still in the books. So that's five strikers that you've got right there. So that's my whole thing about, are we going to bring in a striker? Because we've already got 4 there.
If we don't, yeah.
I know obviously there's 2 or 3 there who we don't particularly see as being good enough, or who we don't think want to be at the club, but that's still 4 bodies.
Yeah.
Right. My take on it is, it's very difficult, but if we can get Eddie on side and want to play for us, if he really, really wants to be stubborn and hold out for the highest wages, he'll get that even more by leaving on a Bosman. So if we can get him happy and playing for Celtic for this season, thinking about the direct qualification to the Champions League, I'd be happy to take the hit on the money that we don't receive for him. We've got that 40% sell-on clause that we owe PSG, so we're not going to be making that much money from him. But if he playing maybe with Furuhashi and whoever else, Abada or Forrest, can not guarantee, but if they can play to their full potential and they can wipe the floor with the competition domestically and get us into the Champions League, then that will be a legacy worth remembering. And I won't be bitter about him leaving on a free come the end of the season. I'd be happy with that. That's a sacrifice that I'd be willing to take. And what you're saying, swings and roundabouts, sometimes a big investment doesn't always pay off. Like, he's obviously been good for Celtic, but the tangible rewards of getting that Champions League, very, very difficult to get. But
yeah,
guys, kind of finishing up, we've been through quite a lot. The meaty subject of the preview with AZ Alkmaar, and obviously the Strachan shenanigans, which is divided opinion, and of course the transfer rumours. We're still waiting for these names to come in that Postecoglou has been more or less promised. At least Postecoglou has been kind enough, and he's not actually given the fans, us, a timeline of when to expect it, because that part of it is out of his control. But at least he's given those warnings, those subtle warnings to the board in his interviews. But looking forward, the fixtures wise, of course, we've got AZ Alkmaar on Wednesday. That's at 7:45, Wednesday the 18th, and then following that at the weekend, we've got Celtic again at home to St Mirren. That's Saturday the 21st at 3 o'clock kickoff. So that'll be something to look forward to. And again, another home game against St Mirren. So hopefully they won't cause us too many problems. But you can never say never. And then again, the return leg, we're playing away to AZ Alkmaar, and this will actually be on the Thursday, the 26th of August. A curious time of 7:15, and then the big one at the end of this month, the 29th of August, Celtic away to Rangers on the Sunday. So that'll be we'll get closer to that before we actually sink our teeth into that one. Guys, good topics anyway, and McGinty, I love your cynicism, but you're probably coming from keeping Celtic in mind. You've got Celtic in your best interest anyway. Whenever you're talking about Strachan, I'm sure, even though we probably don't agree in that one. Any final thoughts, McGinty, before we wrap up for this evening?
No, for me, it's time to keep looking forward. At Celtic, we shouldn't look back to last season too much, and I know that's where a lot of my cynicism comes from. But it's positive still going forward. The approach that Ange's bringing has got us excited, and I'm looking forward to the game on Wednesday night. So hopefully a good performance there, a good win if we can get it, and we keep going forward.
Mm. And Paddy, I'm like the least attuned guy for IT sort of things, but I believe that you made a kind of a breakthrough in terms of networking for our podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to be available on the Celtic News Now app. So thanks very much to David for allowing us to come onto that. Yeah, so we're available on that as well. If you can't see us, just search for Jungle Gyms Podcast.
And if you can't see us, we're probably just having bad internet connections anyway, so just kind of hang on. Guys, thank you very much. And as always, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the thumbs up button as well. And of course, share with your friends and family and Celtic fans. Of course, we're available on Twitter and on YouTube. It's Jungle Gyms Podcast. So from myself, from Paddy and McGinty, thank you very much for watching and enjoy the rest of your evening. Cheers.
Cheers.